dare you?
Welcome back, everyone, and remember, hit like, hit share. If you're new on the channel, give it 10 minutes, and if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button. Tonight, I'm not alone. No, we are going to get into some Scottish woo. We're going to meet the real Wildlings, and we are also going to head over the pond for some Midwest mysteries right here on the stream, coming at you really soon, as in that soon. Yes, indeed, Scotty Lopez. I even caught you off guard there. Lucky you'd stopped picking your nose. How you doing, man?
It was very soon indeed. It's almost like we live in a quantum world where time doesn't exist and everything happens all at once.
That was a cool story from Joe last night, wasn't it? The quantum computer that was almost like rearranging the billiard balls.
It's almost like it's unwinding the coil in a way.
It makes honestly, it was making my head melt in a good way, though, because when you start to think about watching time going backwards, like a flower, we're very used to watching a flower growing in time lapse, and you see it going from the wee shoot, and we've all seen that. But what would it like to be in a room and watch that going the other way, back down into the soil? That would be... It would be surreal, because it just wouldn't make sense in your head, eh?
So like we're saying, whoever is doing that research and kind of figured that out,
A couple of Russians, comrades. Yes.
They need to check their brakes anytime they get in their car.
I'd say so.
Especially when there was mention of perpetual motion.
Yeah, somebody should show them a documentary on people like Tesla and things like that. And this is how your career could possibly go if you keep on talking about the good stuff, you know?
Because, I mean, it's a lot to wrap your mind around, and like I'm going to have to dig into that further and kind of see what all that's about. But essentially, like, they're talking about kind of reversing the laws of thermodynamics, right? So you could put energy into something and then pull it back, and then put the energy back into it, and then pull it back, and then put the energy, and then you're creating a perpetual motion sort of thing. I mean, that's kind of what I gathered out of it. So you're never losing the energy. You're essentially rewinding the clock so you can utilize that energy.
They're definitely going to need to get their brakes checked. Definitely.
Some interesting stuff. And what they were using a quantum computer to kind of figure out how to do that. It was crunching the numbers or doing its weird quantum stuff.
In a place outside of time, in a little dimension of its own. Yes, indeed. Now, before we get going today, and we're going to take you back in time, and we're going to take a look at the history of us, the Wildlings. But before I do that, I'm going to go into the chat room, see who's kicking about in their war. Oh my goodness. Been a while since I've seen war in there. Good to see you. We've got AJ McCammond is in there. We've still got some tunes on. We have got Mammoth, Nothing As It Seems, Lulu, John, AJ, Logos. Yes, good to see you. We have also got, we've got Lulu. We've done that one. Queen Goddess. Good to see you, sister. You're going to enjoy this one. Mammoth, you're going to love this. This is ancient woo, right up your street. And you're even, for all you fans of the show, is it Outlander? Is that the name of the show? I think that's the name of it. I think it is, isn't it, Scott? Where they go to the stone and the time travel and all that good stuff.
Yeah. That's
funnily enough, women all around the world go crazy for that program. Nothing to do with the stone, by the way. Nothing to do with the guys in kilts, right? Yeah, you feeling it, Scott? You know what it's all about. So we've got Sam Carno kicking about in there. Who else? We've got Brian. Good to see you. He was posting his pictures of Florida today. And Brian is not a typical Florida man, Scott. Rest assured, we can be calm. He's not going to do anything too crazy. Who else we got? Just Be Happy. Winslow Burdett. Well, very nice to meet you, sir. What a very splendid name that is, Scott. Isn't it? I like that one. Yes. Winslow. Dang, you don't meet many Winslows. I like that, man. Where else we got up here? Where else? Probably who else would be better? Jose Ramon Frances. Yes. Almost broken a French accent there, Scott. You're a bad influence on me. And I think that's about it. Oh, Saint Marie Annette. Yeah, see? I had to do it. I had to with that one.
Yeah, you had to.
Right, okay then. So we've got that out of the way. And folks, I've got some stories we're going to get into, but I think the real kind of takeaway in the Scottish segment of the show before Scott takes us over the pond is we've got not one, but two amazing pieces of drone footage of not only Clava Cairns, the big stone. Oh, imagine women being interested in big stones, Scott. Imagine that. But we've also got as well, very historic, Culloden Battlefield. Now, we'll get to that in all due course. But I started off and I called this stream Meet the Wildlings. And I loved Game of Thrones. I was absolutely obsessed with it right up until that last season. And I don't even tend to talk about it because it was so atrocious. They should have finished it before it even got there. But when you take a look at the author, and it's George R.R. Martin, I had to check my notes there. You know, he did base the areas, the people that are featured in Game of Thrones on actual people, civilizations, geographical locations, and in Game of Thrones, one of the main things, beyond the wall, right, where all the wildlings are, where all the crazy kind of mental looking, what do they call it, the White Walkers? Almost forgot the name of them there, Scott. But these people north of the wall, the wildlings, in the actual show, in the books, they literally were based on another people that were shoved away to the north, behind the wall. Yeah, the Scots, the Picts, the Celts. So tonight we're going to take you on a little tour and we're going to meet these real wildlings. So then, if we kick it all off, we can come over here. And just in case anyone thinks I'm at it, I'm stretching it with the Game of Thrones thing. This comes from the Telegraph. Game of Thrones versus history, the real characters and events that inspired George R.R. Martin. And it says the unruly people who live beyond the wall, wildlings, or if you're being PC about it, free folk. You see, only in Scotland, only in the UK, Scott, do they offer you a politically correct version of the same sentence, you see. Isn't that nice? Really inclusive.
Oh my. How's wildlings going to offend somebody?
I'm. Look at me, Scott. Look at this face. Do I not look disturbed by that?
I mean, the fact that they took the time to sit there and think about.
It's the Telegraph, dude. Yeah, it's the Telegraph.
It's pretty going to be offended by the name Wildlings. Let's just go ahead and, you know.
They've got to cover themselves, man. They've got to. That's what happens. You see, this is what happens, Scott. This is what happens when you live with really kind of draconian political correctness for years, you know, and eventually I could have just read past that. It's normal for me. You get used to it. And you see, this is coming to you, dude. You get ready for it. So it says, our masters at surviving the harsh northern winters. And although wildling is a blanket term, these proper northerners are made up of smaller tribes and clans. And it goes for the historical parallel. If the wall is Hadrian's Wall, it's pretty clear that these free folk are meant to be the Picts, the Scots, and the Celts. the wild tribes of ancient Britain. So let's take a dive in and read more about these wild tribes before we take a look at our first piece of drone footage. So this website here is rapidly moving up there alongside the mysterious universe. It's ancientorigins.net. And this is the Picts, the Gaels, and the Scots, exploring their mysterious and sometimes mythical origins. And there's stuff in here that is going to blow our minds. It really is. So it says, when... On you go, Scott.
Man, like, I heard the Gaelic language. That is some crazy stuff, man.
That is some crazy stuff, dude. I wouldn't even attempt it.
Yeah, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
I heard somebody who was like trying to keep the language alive because, you know, a lot of people don't.
We used to go and play shinty. Shinty's like hockey, only no rules and people get really hurt. But we would go out to the island of Skye, you'd get the boat over, and after the game, you'd go for your dinner. And no joke, Scott, as soon as you walked into the pub, it was like tumbleweed, because you weren't local for a start. And they would all stop speaking English. You'd hear them speaking English on your way in. And then as soon as you were there, boop, they would turn to Gaelic, so you couldn't understand them. How ignorant is that? So, yeah, very clannish, very tribal, still, to this day in Scotland, you know? And it says, when the tribe of Chatai arrived in Scotland at the beginning of the Christian era and became the embryonic clan Keith, they assimilated with the people known to us by their Roman name, the Picts. They, however, knew themselves by another name, the Celti or the Kelti. We are aware of this from the written work of the Roman scribes, who quite naturally filled in the details of the unknown that they were expected to. And where the Picts came from and who they were, other than the carvers of often monumental monoliths and the speakers, readers, and writers of a script that we are still yet to decipher, understand, and know, remains a mysterious to the masses. Now, Scott, before I even go any further, dude, we've got a people here that have got speakers, readers, and writers of a script that we are still yet to decipher, understand, and know. You know, that's pretty... we look for mysteries and things like that, but that's pretty cool, man.
Remember, they found that stone that the Picts had carved, and I don't think that they were able to decipher it, or they're still trying to figure it out, and it had like these mythical creatures carved into it and stuff like that. And you know, this is just one of those things where we're talking about a culture, a people here, an ancient culture that it's kind of like they're underrated, I guess you could say, when it comes to mysteries. You know,
very.
You don't see a lot of people talking about the Picts.
Well,
you know,
when I was up,
it
was a couple of years ago now, Scott. I was home, and we went to a site that was still being excavated, and I think the video might still be on YouTube. It should be, but there's a skeleton in there, right? And it's weird because they don't let you anywhere near it. It's down on the floor below, and there's only a glass kind of thing you can look down into it. Scott, this thing is absolutely massive. And I'm talking massive, and that's going to come really relevant as well in this little article that we're reading from. But there's something very strange and out of place about these people, I think.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more to the Picts than, you know, than what people are kind of, you know, looking into right now. I think the mystery goes a lot deeper with these people.
Big time.
Yeah.
So if we come down here, it says, descendants of a goddess. Now, they themselves believed that they were the descendants of the goddess Brigid. Here it is here. Considered to be sacred and benevolent across the disparate communities of the Celtic world. Kenneth MacAlpin, considered to be Scotland's first king, was a descendant through his mother, as all Pictish kings were, as a consequence of their matrilineal system of inheritance. So,
So they inherited through the mother's bloodline.
Yeah.
As opposed to the
kind of woke. They were woke.
Little woke.
Little woke.
Hey.
Bit more woke than I would have given them credit for. This is where it starts to get really weird. Because to the Gaelic speakers who had arrived in Ireland, the Picts of what they called Alba, Scotland, were known as the Cruithne, which translates into English as wheat growers. And that name too can be found in use in Ireland at the time to describe the non-Gaels. Now their land was known as Cruithin Tuath, and the Cruithne had populated Ireland before the arrival of Hibernia, of the Gaels from Iberia. Now, I want you to take a really, really good look at this picture that's about to come up here, because there's something far wrong. And bear in mind what I was talking about with that skeleton just a moment ago, okay? Because here is a picture of somebody that towers above castles, Scott. Now, I get it. She could be deified and idolized, and they could be making her look absolutely massive. But as we're going to look at when I show you other depictions of the Picts, these were a big people, big man. A big, big people. And remember my almost frenzy over the fact that my ancestors allegedly had to swing about claymores. And I couldn't do the math in my head, Scott, because these claymores are like probably the size of me. Now, you're going to have to be a really big person to be swinging these things about, is my point. And when you see something like that, well, maybe we did have bigger people than what they're letting on at some point roaming these lands, wouldn't you say?
Definitely a possibility. And you're right. Like, whenever you see, like, claymores and bastard swords, you know, I mean, those things are huge.
Yeah, it's out of place, isn't it? It looks like it's, like, fake. It's that big.
Well, yeah, I mean, my brother collects swords, and he's got a huge bastard sword hanging on the wall. And, I mean, you got to wonder, like, in battle, that's not very efficient unless it's a size that you can.
There you go. I mean, that's not really, like Scott's saying, as a combat tool. That ain't going to be your special forces first dive when it comes to cutting blades. You know, that ain't going to be the one. Look at that hang there. Yeah, let me just pull that out of my pocket, Scott. Look at the handle on it.
I mean, look, I mean, in every other, when you're talking about like a military fighting force, even going back to the ancient times, right? It's all about efficiency, right? It's all about efficiency and speed and being able to hit your enemy as fast as possible. Now, either we're dealing with regular sized guys that have superhuman strength and can actually like whip these things around like super fast.
Genetically modified. Genetically modified.
Genetically modified.
They look the size of those boys on the beach. Remember the size of them, dude? Like big boys.
Or we're dealing with a people that were of a much larger stature where that sword actually made sense in relation to their size.
Yep.
Now, I think we're talking about the latter there. I think we're talking about people of a much larger stature that when you compared their size to the size of that sword, it actually didn't look out of place. It looked like it actually would be something that they would wield, you know.
You know, if you had an armorer that was like making swords that was too big for the army, he wouldn't last long. his head wouldn't be on his shoulders too long. These were a harsh kind of day. There was definitely winners and losers back in this day. You got the swords wrong. Not a good outcome. Nah.
And my brother, he also has a Viking sword, right? And it's only about half the size of the bastard sword he has, and so.
Well, Mammoth is perfectly correct in the chat room, because it doesn't matter how much we talk about the size of somebody's sword, Scott. It's obviously how you wield it. Yes, boom, indeed.
Yes, that's a fact. That's a fact.
From an actual qualified archaeologist, that definitely tells us to shut up and move on, right? So we go from this big girl here. She actually looks like the big girl that's in Game of Thrones. Like the big one that's a fighter. She ends up like a knight. Hey, it gets a bit woke. What can I say? But it goes on to say here. Now this picture is a hand-coloured version of Theodore de Bry's engraving of a Pict woman. Scott, she's not a queen. This is a woman. It's just a woman. It's just a Jane Doe of the Pictish era. That is a big woman.
Just a Pict woman?
Whoa, man. Dang, dude. You throw a couple of them into one of these, like, Me Too marches, and I'll be alongside them. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Big time. So we come down, it says the Irish Chronicle. And on that note, Scott's going to join me one day this week on the Kev Baker Show. And we are going to be uncut, unplugged, and algorithm free. And myself and Scott will be talking about a lot of topical stuff. NSFYT, not suitable for YouTube. But we get back in here, and it says the Irish Chronicle, the book of Leprechauns. It is written that from Noah came Japheth, and then father after son, Fathecht, Maes, Buin, Agnoin, Partalan, Luchte, Kinge, and Cruthni, who himself produced the 7 sons, Kate, C, Kirrig, Fib, Fiddich, Fotla, and Fortram, each of whom were...
Can we bring back some of these old school names?
That's pretty cool, isn't it? I want to be Agnoin. Or Fib. Just call me Fib. You liar. That was a family of liars, weren't they? Yeah, they were. You will forever be known as Fib. So it says, each of whom were kings of the 7 provinces or kingdoms of Cruthyn Tuath. So the Greek historian Strabo, writing in the 1st century AD, asserted that the Picts, or the Celts, had been displaced to Scotland from the Celtic lands of Gaul, which he called Galatai, by the Samaritans, whose soldiers had invaded from beyond the river Rhine and from the mountains that are now part of Switzerland. In fact, he tells the reader that they had arrived in Celte Galatia from Asia Minor, where they had been known as the Chaldees, or Galat from Galatia, the area that was formerly the lands upon the Hittites had built their capital, Hattusa. And are they the same people as the Chaldeans who migrated from the neighbourhood of Sumer towards Anatolia? Now, Scotty, are they hinting that, like, we came out of Sumer, as in, like, Sumerian woo going on there? And the only reason I kind of, like, bring that up is Laird Scranton. He does a lot of work on the Dogon. I got into it because he kind of showed how they were basically their hieroglyphs and their cosmology. It was kind of lining up with our modern day quantum physics. I know, mind blowing. But then he wrote another book about the islands of the Hebrides. Now, the Hebrides are little islands off Scotland, and there's prehistoric buildings on there. But you find a similarity between the hieroglyphs and the buildings of the Dogon and this really out-of-place settlement on the Hebrides. So that could suggest a movement from North Africa up through and then to Scotland, you know?
Yeah, I definitely um yeah, I definitely think that is a very real possibility, that there was a lot of movement, um a lot of migration from the Middle East, during ancient times um up into the UK, that whole area, even up into Scotland. On a side note, though, it mentioned this group of people called the Samaritans. I wonder if that's where the term Good Samaritan comes from.
We are on the same wavelength because it's the first time I've really heard about Samaritans as some kind of people, a force. Usually a Samaritan's just somebody that does good, right? The Samaritan meets you and he gives you a hand. So yeah, quite interesting. We might need to dig into that.
I wonder if they were just like a really cool, chilled out kind of people.
Yeah, man, they were like us. They were like the kind of, I don't want to call it truthers because that encapsulates far too many people that I don't ever want to be associated with. But information seekers, chilled out, maybe more open-minded, Scott, than the people of their day. Would that be fair?
So then they kind of, their whole name got tagged on to, hey, he's a good Samaritan.
Yep. Yeah, well, I'm liking that. If it isn't that, we're gonna rewrite history. That's in vogue right now. It is very fluid history, so we can make it what we want today. But we'll get back into this because it gets even better, Scott. Holy ancestors. It's what the title. It's not me saying holy ancestors. That'd be a good actual saying, though. Holy ancestors. The Gaels themselves recorded their descent through time in the Liber Gabawa, written in the 11th century AD. Now, it claimed that their ancestor was a Scythian king, Phineas Farsaid, also a descendant of Japheth. That's a hell of a word to say that. Japheth. He needs to get better names. Was that Noah's boy? Yeah, Noah needs to name his kids better. Joe.
Oh, chat's kind of filling us in. See how we are living in the chat said that Samaritans came from Samaria.
It is there, yeah. I'm going to blow that up so Scott can see it even better.
Carol in the chat also said, in the Bible, the man who helped the guy that got robbed was a Samaritan.
Yeah, that's where it came from. All right, I thought that's where it came. So he was a Samaritan. You learn something every stream. You see?
Yes.
I love this. It's all good. You see, there's a giving and a taking. It's an exchange of information. So it works here. Dang, I love it. So the Gaels themselves recorded their descent through time in the Liber Gabawa, written in the 11th century AD. So it claimed that their ancestor was the Scythian king, Phineas Farsaid. What a great name. Phineas. Yeah, can I be Phineas when I come back? Phineas Garfunkel. That's what I want to be, Scott. That's a cool name, isn't it?
Isn't there a cartoon called Phineas and Ferb?
It might be.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Dang it, they stole it. Also a descendant of that crazy named son of Noah, and one of the 72 chiefs who began the construction of the ill-fated Tower of Babel. So we're 72. That's a very specific number that seems to transcend belief systems and is used for very different stories altogether. But we're getting a link between like Scotland, Ireland, and people that were to do with the Tower of Babel. Scott, who knew? So it says, dang, dude, Joe's going to wish he was here for this one. He'd be shooting it all down, wouldn't he? He'd be like, no, it can't be so. I was on the boat. I didn't send my son to Scotland. So it says his son, Nell, wed the Egyptian princess Scotta, and from that union came the son, Gadel Glass, from whom came the Gaelic culture and language, one of the original 72 tongues that emerged following the curse of the 72 chieftains intent on building a tower to talk to God. Does that say then, Scott, that the languages were split into 72 different versions?
That's what it
seems to
sounds
hint
like.
at that, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
Very interesting.
that is. Nell and Scota spent their time in Egypt before they left for Spain, leaving at the same time that the Hebrews departed. Now, wherever they left to, they brought with them the accumulated knowledge of that civilization. Wow. The Hebrew Bible of the Old Testament is, of course, where we first read of the Tower of Babel, or Babel, and Japheth, as well as his second-born son, Magog. From the Romano-Jewish historian of the 1st century, Titus Flavius Josephus, he is here, born Yusuf ben Mattiyahu. Fuck, damn, good at that. Must have been kicking about back then in those days a bit. Yeah, I'm not going to say anything. We learn from the Scythians are descended from Magog. I'm not a descendant of Magog, Scott. Promise it gets better. Could it be that the firstborn son of Japheth came the Picts, and from the second-born came the Gaels? The biblical tribe of Dan has often been connected with the story of Ireland, particularly with one of the founding people of that land, the Tuatha de Danann, which can translate as the tribe of Dan. Now, Scott, you were telling me that you do shows. Well, I know you do shows with Christopher Everard, but this kind of topic comes up from time to time, doesn't it?
Yeah, he had a guest on a show we did, I think sometime early last year. It may have been, maybe it been even earlier than that, maybe around 2 years ago. But I can't remember the guy's name, unfortunately.
Is that it there? Joseph Atwill, Caesar's Messiah.
I think it may have been him. I'm not exactly.
I think so.
Not exactly for sure, but he wrote a whole book on this, talking about the connection of this Middle East connection with possible migration up into the UK, the Scotland, and the rest of that area. And very interesting stuff. He makes a pretty compelling case for it, and suggests that possibly even Jesus himself, in that sort of missing period of time in the Bible, may have traveled up into the UK. So
this is what this crazy theory about a new king plays into.
Yes, I know.
And folks, we're not going there. We're not going there. But this is the kind of information that you can use, because it's really researchable up to a point. And this is the kind of thing that has led to there being a new king of England. And, all I would suggest is go and check out who was getting the colour trooped for them at Windsor Palace today, and check out that dude's bio, because it reads like something off of a 007 bio.
Yeah,
it truly does.
And I was telling Kev before the show, we were discussing this stuff, and the problem with a lot of this stuff floating around right now, with that 17th letter of the alphabet and all of that, is that they take a lot of topics, a lot of very well researched stuff, and then they inject their own crap into it. So you've got to be careful, and you've got to be able to separate
the signal from the noise.
The signal from the noise. So yeah,
big time. But this is
But there's definitely no. I definitely believe that there was a lot of connections between the UK, that the Scotland, all of that area, and all the way down into the Middle East. I definitely think that there was some migration that took place and a lot of knowledge that was taken up there as well.
And we're gonna get, folks, don't think it's just me and Scott reading from this article. We've got some of the best drone footage of Clava Cairns that I've seen. That's gonna be coming up. That's gonna be cool to watch. We've also got Culloden Battlefield, and then Scott's gonna take us to Midwest Mysteries. I tell you, I didn't even know if there was gonna be a stream tonight, and I thought, nah, I'm gonna do this Scottish stuff. It's pretty cool. Really impressed with the drone footage, and on the drone footage, can I give a big shout out to Greg, or Griggles as we like to call him? He's like one of the family. He's a big gentle giant. He's a lunatic, Scott, but he certainly seems to have an eye for the drone footage, doesn't he?
Yes. Oh, very, very fantastic drone footage, I must say. Look, very professional, I'm going to say. Oh, and See How We Are Living in the chat is referencing exactly what we were talking about on Everard Show. He said, Jesus was a frequent visitor to Cornwall for 10 with his uncle Joseph of Arimathea.
Yeah, you see, this is that. Yeah, did Jesus make it over here? Yeah.
They had some kind of a tin mining operation or something going on. I specifically remember.
And what else is in Cornwall? The Tommy Knockers. Just saying, dude. Just saying. You see, it all links together when I really stretch it. Let's go back here, and if we come over, it says the Dan Hebrews who occupied a coastal territory in ancient Israel were mariners and merchants. They were also of the lands of Crete and Greece, from where they left at the time of a famine, and the schism within the house of David that saw the 10 northern tribes seceding over the ascension to the throne of Solomon's son, Rehoboam, after a conciliation and a reunification of the kingdoms of Judah and Israel. Now, these were concurrent events. So according to history, from the Greek islands they arrived in Denmark, giving that place its name. Now, interestingly, the people of the rest of Scandinavia began, or the peopling, of the rest of Scandinavia began at Denmark. For obvious geographical reasons, therefore, it would have been possible for the Tuatha De Danann to have arrived in Ireland from the north, as the Irish chronicles inform. Scotland, too, is to the north of Ireland. So according to the ancient myths of Ireland, recorded at different times in different languages and by different people, upon the arrival of the Gaels on the island, Ireland was inhabited by a people who were known to history as the Tuatha De Danann. Now, according to legend, the first Gael ashore was met by 3 high kings of the Tuatha De Danann, MacCool, Machecht, and Macrenny, accompanied by 3 queens. This is just a picture of allegedly people arriving at a other world inhabited.
Very interesting, because there's like kind of a parallel here with like the 3 kings.
Yeah.
Just that whole kind of archetype is
definitely sewn in there.
Yeah.
Big time. This is where it gets even weirder. Because it says the story continues that a deal was struck and the Gaels agreed that they would wait on board their ships anchored offshore. In the meantime, one of the queens conjured a tempest with the intention of scattering the invading fleet. However, it abated with the magical words of a Gaelic poet. In the end, the surviving Gaels, or Milesians, as they were known to the Tuatha De Danann and to the chroniclers of the time, landed and agreed that Ireland should be split between them. The Gaels taking the ground of the island. Are you ready, Scott? The Tuatha De Danann inheriting the underground, where they would continue to live as the fairy people of fable. And can I introduce to you The Leprechauns. Yes.
Oh,
You see?
very interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So there's another picture of it, the coming of the sons of Miled. Pre-Celtic fairy people were overthrown by the invading Milesians. So the Tuatha De Danann had themselves invaded Ireland, relieving those they knew as the Firbolg. That's a good name, isn't it? The Firbolg. Something your cat would cough up. But of their command. Scholars assert that the Firbolg were the Celts displaced from the area of today's Belgium. Yeah, what a weird country. What a pointless country that is. Why not just make it France? It's utterly pointless. Anyway, don't trigger me. Not that Belgium triggers me much, Scott.
As a wise man once said, Belgium is the place where other countries go and solve their differences.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's kind of neutral ground, I suppose. Cheese eating. Anyway, which was being incorporated into the Romanized world. They would confuse things, as the dates for the Roman advance on Belgae are too late to fit, or are they? Legend asserts that the Firbolg were descendants of 5,000 people who had originated in Greece and arrived in Ireland from their first traversing, or after first traversing, continental Europe as far as the English Channel. So were the Tuatha De Danann and the Cruithne one and the same people? By becoming the fairies residing in the underworld or spiritual world, they became eternal. Their symbols, their names, histories, and legends would become part of the high culture of the Gaels of Ireland and remain so, as indeed happened across the water in Scotland, where the spiritual heritage of the Picts, or Cruithne, was the glue that held together a new society forged by the merging of the Scots of Dalriata to create a Gaelic Scotland. And the name Ayr, the Gaelic form of Ireland, comes from Eriu, one of the triumvirate. No, my word. Triumvirate? Triumvirate? Yeah.
Yeah.
Goddess of the Tuatha De Danann and the wife of King Macecht. Her sisters, Banda and Folta. That's cool names. That's pretty cool names. Were given their names informally and poetically to their land. Folta was also a son of Cruithne. Probably well butchered that name. Could he instead have been a daughter? Perhaps more appropriate in the matrilineal succession, sons and daughters sharing the kingdom. There's a red-haired, as we were getting into with a stream the other day, 6% of people in Scotland have red hair. Average only 2% elsewhere, Scott, just so you know. And it says the result of 7 years of famine. It's not reasonable to suggest that the mass displacement of populations that occurred around the globe, but specifically for this piece in North Africa, the Levant, Anatolia, and the Black Sea area during the 7 years of famine between 1703 and 1696 BC, was the primary driving force for the settlement of Scotland, Ireland, and much of northwestern Europe, for that matter. Well, the catastrophic calamity that was recorded from China to the Americas in literature and in the rings of trees forced starving Aryans from their desiccated grasslands over the Hindu Kush towards the civilization of the Indus Valley. Now, it drove the Scythians westward too into Europe, and thus creating the Celtic nation of Europe, that over time themselves spread westward until being isolated there millennia later. Now you get an old look at the old world, how they kind of all moved about. It's pretty mad, Scotty. There's the Phoenicians. You hear a lot about them, right? You don't realize, you hear about the tribes all the time, but something I'm not very well versed in. But when you see them moving as far north as up here, then it's not a stretch to imagine that they ended up very much over here,
Like, you can really see
Two different routes,
how
up there or up through it.
I mean, and you got to think they're gonna find probably the shortest way over somewhere.
Yeah.
And instead of taking like very long convoluted ways around to get there, I mean, barring any kind of geographical obstacles that they might come across, but still, I mean, you can just see from that it wouldn't be a stretch of the imagination to see how they could easily make that northern jump.
I mean, look at that
as
there,
opposed
Scott.
to southern jump.
Look at that. Look, the Celts. Oh, dude. I mean, this is crazy when you think about it, man. What information did they take with them when they came round here?
What I'm saying, man.
Yeah.
Like,
that's a lot of
then
lost
you gotta,
knowledge.
You gotta wonder what all of these megalithic sites and what are they really representing, and what kind of knowledge were they imparting into those structures.
Exactly, dude. And we're almost there. We're almost at them. If I can hang on, we can get off that. It would be nice. There we go. If we come back here, it says we can see that the seafarers of the Mediterranean had already established intercontinental trade routes, and the builders of the monuments of the Middle East had already navigated the northern European coastline. It doesn't stretch the imagination to see the connection between the Levantine Leviathans, sorry, not the Leviathans, no, the Leviathan, and the Pictish stones at Callanish, both constructed to monitor and honour the sun in its cycle. Mm-hmm. And it seems that the ancestral origin myths retained and remembered by modern Scots and the Irish are borne out. So there you go, Scotty. Yeah. That's pretty cool, eh?
Yeah, just like what I said, a lot of these carvings and stone structures are incorporating a lot of that knowledge that was taken out of the Middle East, out of that area of the world. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that there's enough evidence there to really show there was a lot of migration that took place. And
you're going to have to get Everard to give us a shot of that author. We need him.
Yeah.
I'm going to start looking for more authors, and as well as, the real people around the world that we're bringing in, giving us their oral stories and things. Let's get more of the researchers in as well.
I'll have to dig through the archives and see if I can find that show. And then
James
I'll be able
Swagger would have been the man for this, wouldn't he?
Yes, he would have, man.
I miss that guy. Really miss that guy. It says here in my recent article, Names from the Near East, it is asserted that there was a fusion between the Hittites of Anatolia and the Picts. Were they already familiar with each other from their shared time together in the Middle East? The crucible of modern civilization. Now notice, my Australian friends, how I said modern civilization, okay? Now, each of the original waves of invaders of what would eventually become the British Isles launched themselves from the Mediterranean, and it seems that they moved because a famine had caused the collapse of their societies. City-states were collapsing, civilizations too. Sumer, like its teacher, Harappa, also collapsed at this time, and perhaps forcing its most famous son, Abraham, credited with teaching science to the Egyptians, to begin the migration that would allow him to fulfill his God-given duties to teach. This gets really deep. It says, it says the first to reach those windswept northern shores built the structures that allowed civilization to exist, specifically to track time. And each of the civilizations in that area at that time were polytheistic sun worshippers, and they had emerged from the same root, one teaching the other and pushing knowledge of the material world further along the road of discovery. They brought all their knowledge and customs with them, and they also brought their spiritual inheritance, and it's never left us. And now I know! Now I know why I've got this bloody inquisitive mind, Scott. It's because of these fellas, right? They left it here.
Yeah. See, you've inherited that.
Look at that there, man. Look at that there. When I got back from Clava Cairns, you must have heard me at one point saying, dude, this was not a graveyard. This wasn't for some ceremonial graves. It's a sundial, right?
Exactly. Right. And we were all like, dude, that's some kind of a celestial calendar that they made.
The video that I done, I actually walk around it, and you hear me counting off the stones, because I know exactly there's going to be 12 bigger stones around the circle I'm walking around. But hey, you've probably had enough listening to me for now. Not enough of listening to Scott. You could listen to him all night. I could as well. But how about we go and take a look at some of the drone footage that we have got. And this here is Griggles. Yes, Mr. Greg. And we'll play this now. It starts off at Culloden. You'll see Culloden Viaduct. This is him very, very fresh with the drone. Very raw. But when we get to Clava, and it's only a couple of minutes long, I think you're going to be left in absolute awe. Here we go. And old Grego's here. He's going to be going to Boleskine and getting us some footage from above of Boleskine House. Now that there is Culloden Viaduct. Very nice, right? Mammoth, that's not my brother, and don't tell him he's hot. He's already big-headed. My word, if you seen him in real life, you wouldn't think that, Mamo. Honestly, don't say that. But yeah, Clava Cairns. We're gonna see Culloden Battlefield as well, but a few miles east of that, you've got Clava Cairns, and it says here there are 3 burial cairns, and you can start to see them now at Balna I hate this word, Balna Urin. Yes, Balnuarin. My mother's going to be sitting going mad right now. It's Balnuarin, right? And they are part of the line of 7 dotted along the south side of the valley of the River Nairn. Now these together form part of a group of some 45 distinctive cairns in northern Inverness-shire, all called Clava Cairns after this location, which is where they were first studied. What sets them apart is their construction with a curb, a ring of large containing boulders. And that is what you're looking at right there, folks. Pretty cool, Scotty. Pretty cool footage, right?
Very cool footage.
Very cool. I can't wait to see more from old Griggles there. But we're going to go back. We're going to take a look at Culloden Battlefield soon. But we come back over here, we can get some of these pictures up of Clava Cairns. Hopefully. It's not even letting us. Let's see. What a horrible website. Pictures. Just give us pictures, man. It's all we want, pictures. I'm a simple man. I just want pictures. Right, and we'll just come down. We'll just look at these as they come then. So that's one of the main ones. You can see the stones round it, Scott. There's a big one there and all. But you basically get your 12, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Another one there.
You could see that it's also sitting on like it seems like it's sitting on.
What is that all about, dude?
Yeah.
How do you do that in stone?
The kind of center area, the rocks in the center, it looks like they're sitting on a mound that's even underneath the ground. That's kind of
there?
raised up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could be right because even when you're there, Scott, there's parts of it. I was saying to my family when we were there, and you can see it's not fully excavated. I mean, that stone there.
It looks like there's a lot more to the structure that probably hasn't been uncovered yet.
Big time. I mean, look at that. There's another one of the stones as well. It's almost like a book. Pages opening. It's that we went in that little bit at night. I could show that. I think I've got that somewhere. Hang on. Got something I can shove on. Find this. We've watched this before, but it gives you a better impression-ish. Hang on. Make this smaller or it's going to take up the whole damn screen when I bring it up. Yeah, there we go. Hey, Frank! See what I'm saying about the big stones round it? It's like you couldn't miss it. And they're telling me this is a graveyard. I'm like, but it's not. But it's not! It's just not. How would you even move that? Yes, I was very, very PPP'd at the time. Very. It was troubling me how anyone could move that stone. Probably not the first thing people would think of, but hey. So this is Clava stones. There's my brother there in his soy jeans. Far too tight, Scott. Need to have a word with him. You can see his manly bits. It's not right. I don't know. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My clock. Oh, it's looking like a clock, Scott. It's like a clock. There's the stone. That's the stone. When I go through the Stargate, That's the one, Scott. That's the one that sucks you through, man. Away you go. That's the one, man. Wrong show, but you get the idea, right? But there's something weird about that stone, Scott. It's like a... Look at it. It's like... Stone, look at it. It's like all been stuck together in layers, dude.
You gotta do your bit, boy. You gotta do your bit, Kevin.
So your bit, aye, right, when you go through, aye. I'm going to.
Good luck.
You know, there was a part of me actually there was 1% of my brain thinking, the way my universe works, if I touch this, will I go? Boom! You know what I'm saying, Scott? Oh.
Exactly. I was just about to say, I bet you touched that thing and there was a part of you that was like, come on, blip me out. Let's see where this goes.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Wait, we can get it on here. Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. You better believe it. I thought it was going, man. I thought it was away. Oh, look there, the old Dutch look. Taking it easy. Bet she wishes her hair looked like that now. Lockdown is not doing her good.
How about this? Maybe what if you did touch it and you teleported into this timeline? You just didn't realize it. It was just a seamless shift.
You're right, but look at this. This is what I'm talking about. Wait a moment here. Wait a moment. We need to discuss this, Scott, me and you. As two unwoke men. Look at that! Look at, what is that? Granted, he's got socks on. I'll let him off for having socks on, but come on, man. Kenny. You know what I'm saying? Getting close to soy that, Scott.
The jeans are a little tight, I must say.
A little tight. They're like budgie smugglers. I'm telling you, man. So yeah, this is our Clava Cairns one. We've seen this before, though. There's another bit of it up the back. But we're gonna watch the next one. Look at that, Scott. Check that out. Look. Where are we?
Donut.
What's this? That's blatantly a path that needs excavating, right? Look, that's more.
Exactly. You could tell that there's something. There's a lot more under that needs to be excavated, or
Big time. And when we went back there at night, all right, we've been thinking about it all day. We'd been there during the day. I'm the first to say that we went there really charged up. But no way that myself, Kenny, my mum, Kenny's girlfriend at the time, it's still his girlfriend now, make him sound like some crazy player. With jeans like that, I doubt it, Kenny. But but when we went back at night, it's eerie, dude, really eerie. But not as eerie as the next place I'm gonna take people. We're gonna look at that just now, since we're watching videos. But this is back to what Greg's been doing with the drone footage. And we're going to Culloden Battlefield. Now, this is Bonnie Prince Charlie stuff, and I'm going to read out some of the history that goes along with this. And Greg has included some really cool Scottish music over the top of it. And before we move into Scots woo for today, I'm going to make sure you all subscribe to Greg on YouTube. He's only got 5 subscribers, folks. And I think when you see this next video, you're going to go, what? So yeah, let's take a look at this one. This is Culloden Battlefield. Need to make this smaller. Hang on, there we go. The music starts in a little minute, but we'll come over here. So then, Culloden Battlefield. The Battle of Culloden was the final confrontation of the Jacobite Rising of 1745. On the 16th of April in 1746, the Jacobite army of Charles Edward Stuart was decisively defeated by a British government force under William Augustus, the Duke of Cumberland, on Drumossie Moor near Inverness in the Scottish Highlands. It was the last pitched battle fought on British soil. And Charles, I'll just move that there so Scott can actually still see this. Hang on, I'll get it up here. Where is it? Where did I put it? There you go, Scotty. Put it up there for you, man. Charles was the eldest son of James Stuart, the exiled Stuart claimant to the British throne. And that's why Lady Diana's blood was so important, folks. Believing there was support for a Stuart restoration in both Scotland and England, he landed in Scotland in July 1745, raising an army of Scots Jacobite supporters. He took Edinburgh by September and defeated a British government force at Preston Pans. The government recalled 12,000 troops from the continent to deal with the rising. A Jacobite invasion of England reached as far as Derby before we turned back. having attracted relatively few English recruits. The Jacobites, with limited French military support, attempted to consolidate their control of Scotland, where by early 1746 they were opposed by a substantial government army. A scrambled Jacobite victory at Falkirk failed to change the strategic situation, with supplies and pay running short, and with the government troops resupplied and reorganised under the Duke of Cumberland, son of the British monarch George II, the Jacobite leadership had few options left other than to stand and fight. The two armies eventually met at Culloden, on terrain that gave Cumberland's larger, well-rested force the advantage. The battle lasted only an hour, with the Jacobites suffering a bloody defeat. Between 1,500 and 2,000 Jacobites were killed or wounded, while about 300 government soldiers were killed or wounded. While perhaps 5,000 to 6,000 Jacobites remained in arms in Scotland, the leadership took the decision to disperse, effectively ending the rising. And Culloden and its aftermath continued to arouse strong feelings. The government of Glasgow, or the University of Glasgow, awarded the Duke of Cumberland an honorary doctorate, but many commentators alleged that the aftermath of the battle and the subsequent crackdown on the Jacobite sympathisers were brutal, earning Cumberland the sobriquet Butcher. He was the Butcher of Cumberland. Efforts were subsequently made to further investigate the comparatively underdeveloped Scottish Highlands into the Kingdom of Great Britain, and civil penalties were introduced to undermine the Scottish clan system, which had provided the Jacobites with the means to rapidly mobilise an army. Holy hell, now I want to fight. Oh!
I know, that's getting me all fired
Freedom,
up. I'm like,
man, freedom, you know?
let me at him.
I tell you, man, that gets a Scotsman blood going, let me tell you. And think, Scots,
Hey.
think of this, right? Think of this. Who did I end up serving? What side did I end up on? Oh my God. Oh my. Forgive me. Forgive me, God. Wow. Can you believe it, dude? I'd have been on the wrong side that morning, man. No good.
You know, and then just seeing that also like fires me up because of our revolutionary history here in the U.S. and just, you know, it just makes me want to.
Look at this, my brother in the chat room in there. They were actually Kev's jeans. They didn't fit him. That's because I've got a bigger manhood than you, Kenny. You've just walked into that one, dude. But, yeah, freedom. That's... it gets the blood going. Ah.
Yeah, it makes me want to go after some redcoats, let's just say.
Big time, dude. Big time.
Maybe if they would have... If the Jacobites would have waited... Maybe what, 20 more years?
Think of
20,
when we
40...
pushed. Hey, think about when we pushed into England. We pushed basically halfway down to London, Scott. And because they couldn't rally support along the way, then, you know, you were hoping the closer you get to the stronghold. It's like Game of Thrones, man. You're heading for Westerfell, you know? You're going to take that castle, Westminster. And just couldn't get the numbers.
Well, it's just interesting how just tiny little things in history could have just changed a whole bunch, right?
Yeah,
like
George Soros had been around back then, would have been fine. It would have been a Tartan revolution. He likes colours.
Oh my God! I'm just saying, you know, if the Jacobites maybe if it would have happened if they would have made their move, maybe 30 years later, something like that, then it might have worked because England was.
Look how far down we got, Scott. Look at that, right? There's Derby there, right? Let's zoom out. Look at that, dude. We got halfway down to London.
Yeah.
Why the people of Wales? Welsh listeners, why didn't you just jump a little bit east, come and join the party? And we could have got rid of this mob a long time ago. We could have had a Scotsman down there lording it over the lot of us. That would have been perfect, wouldn't it? Oh. Kev the Royalist. Yes. The House of Stuart, Scott. I'll defend the House of Stuart, my man.
Yeah, see, they would have been too busy worried about us our pesky little 13 colonies if they would have waited, another 30 years. And
when I get the time machine, 1745, and I actually know where to find Bonnie Prince Charlie. Do you know how I know where to find Bonnie Prince Charlie? Because when he was on the run from Cumberland, you know how the heads of the armies are. They wait until it's getting just about you've lost it, and then they hightail it out of there. At least they go to the battlefield compared to today's ones. But he actually hid out in a little bed and breakfast it's called the King's Inn now, or it was called the King's Inn, and that's where he hid, Scott. He actually literally hid in there, on his way back to France.
Logo said that the redcoat British Grenadier Marines were a pretty tough lot. Yeah, but how did that work out for them? How did that work out for them in 1776?
You see, you used a lot of the same French forces that helped us, Scott. So you did. There was a lot of kind of crossover between the support that we had, and then it went over to you.
Why were the French so flaky though? Like their support was just kind of like, we kind of help you a little bit, but it's like
because they're French.
Sort of, yeah. It was like it was kind of help, but it really wasn't help. It was just more symbolic help.
Yeah, pretty much. But there was one other. I think there was one other thing I was going to take a look at here. Well, what we'll do is we'll actually just take a look at some of the Pict carvings. Bring that up, and then we'll hand over to Scotty. But these are pretty cool to look at when you see these here. And I hope you've enjoyed that, folks. I'm really enjoying doing the stuff that's closer to home. Why it's taken me this long to really do it is beyond me. But everything happens at the right time, and it's for its own particular reasons. Sometimes we find out what the reason is, sometimes we don't. But here's some of this Pictish carvings. And wouldn't it be funny? I'm actually gonna come back here. Now I want Mammoth, I want Donnie, I want Luna to be looking really closely here. Really closely. And because I wonder if we'll find that little bag. Remember the little bag that turns up in, like, it's at Göbekli Tepe. You see it in the American sites as well, South America. Wonder if we'll see any of that little bag here, Scott, right? It'd be interesting, right? So here we go. We're going to take a little looky then. A little look-see, shall we? So, yeah, that's good enough there. We'll just take a little look down. Let's see. What have we got on here? Some kind of decorative wheels. That's a bit interesting. We've got a shark. That looks like some kind of bird or something. Let's see. Okay, so is this two snaky type things, Scott? They look kind of weird headed, don't they?
Yeah, very, very interesting.
Pull that over. No, we can't. Zoom it out again. Let's see. Hard to get them really big on the screen, isn't it?
Yeah, and then some of them are just like low resolution.
Yeah. You see a lot of this kind of style. A lot of that in the Celtic art. Picts here as well.
Yeah, where you see a lot of like
This twin circle
intertwined
thing, eh?
lines.
This twin circle thing seems to be a common kind of thing going on. Circles and swirls. Twin
wheels
circles.
with the
Yeah.
wheels.
Looks like lightning or something. It's almost like some kind of Nordic ruin, isn't it? That part there with the lines and.
Yeah, say it's very similar to a lot of like.
Oh, is that an owl man?
Oh.
Man with very long face. What on earth's name is that?
Wow.
You got to think, what are these people at that time trying to depict in the north of Scotland? Or are they trying to... Is this a transfer of the knowledge that came up through the Mediterranean and literally from over in Sumer, you know? That's like it is crazy. That's like a big lamb or something, right?
It's like a ram.
Don't tell me early Scottish people were into sheep, Scott. We don't need to hear that. People don't need to know that. They don't need to know that one. Ah. Oh, I was hoping he would have a bag. But he doesn't.
Where's that stone that they recently discovered?
Yeah, I'll get that, dude.
It had some really, really interesting
Stone discovered. Language. Use. There we go. Is that the one? That's not the one. It was a bit... No, I remember the one you were on about. There it is there. Last year, that's it there, because there's the inscriptions on it. That's a weird looking thing. Oh, it's our website. A rare discovery of a Pictish symbol stone has been uncovered deep in the Scottish Highlands. And 1,200 years old and originally standing at more than 2 meters, an ancient monolith, a spiritual monument, was found decorated with a spread of classic Pictish symbols. Experts are rightfully declaring this find as being of national importance. And there it is there. I remember that story. It was my mum that drew my attention to that one. But yeah, I'm glad everyone kind of likes this information, because I certainly enjoy getting into it. And I'm learning a lot along the way as well. I mean, I am in no way an expert on any of this. That almost looks like DNA there, Scott. I know it's not right, but it almost got that double helix kind of thing to it, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's
almost like maybe a plan, like instructions. It's got like the hammer there and whatever's going on here. That's weird. They love this stuff, don't they? They love that.
Yeah, the spiral stuff, and
it's almost like your Holy Trinity as well. You know, you're three, and then in the middle. Pretty cool, man. Pretty cool. I'm gonna scroll for a couple of more, then we're out of here. I need you to have a bag, mate, not a silly long chin and a big nose. These ones are carrying boxes. That must be the Three Kings, right?
Probably.
It's funny how the Three Kings story comes from 2 parts of the world then, and we've got this alleged transfer of people and knowledge coming from Sumer up into Scotland and Ireland, and the story goes with them. Just saying, pretty interesting. Please, one of yous have a bag. No, it's just not there. It's just not there. Right then. That then concludes our little Scottish segment of Woo. And I'm going to be back tomorrow as well with more Scottish Woo. But Scotty boy, I need to turn that off because now I'm just scrolling for the sake of scrolling. So I'm going to find it. Keep going. Little voice in the back of the head. Do it. You'll get your dopamine. Keep going.
What if it was actually what if it actually won up to your bag and you saw a Pictish guy holding a pine cone?
Oh man, that'd be even better. You know, there's a pine cone in Alistair Crowley's garden. Big pine cone. Yeah, man. That whoa. With Kenny and the guy you seen with the drone footage, they were looking at me to say, "What's the relevance of pine cone, Kev?" Didn't want to get into it there. I was going to show them the Vatican and all that crazy symbology. Whoa. But Scott, Midwest Mysteries. What have you found, man? Because we're not going to mention the name of that hotel because that got that demonetized last night. Imagine that. Imagine our joking about a hotel's name doing that.
Yeah. I don't see what was so.
I know, a bit risque. Obviously, the algorithm is starting to discern that when you're having a laugh and try to get around it. I like it.
The algorithm really picked up on that.
I'm going to give Luna a big shout out. I don't know where Luna got to go, heading up to the mountain, see it for Mammoth, Donny. And Luna, you have a fantastic time up there. And we'll be back on the 20th. We'll be joining forces with our Australian friends. Go back to the From video. Back to the video. What video? What video, Donny? Which one? There was a couple of videos. We'll come back to the videos at the end. But Scott, Midwest Woo. Here we go. I'm going to bring up this. Yes.
So I came across the site yesterday when looking for some haunting stuff, and this actually is a pretty cool website. I'll file it under, our Mysterious Universe and what's that other site that you were just on? Ancient Origins and
Unexplained Mysteries is another good one as well.
Yes. Unexplained Mysteries is a very good site as well. And this site seems to be a fairly new site because they don't have a lot archived, but I hope it starts getting some traction because
it sounded promising when you were reading out just even some of the genres they touch earlier on, Scott,
Mysterious Heartland.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Very apt since I come to you all from the smart land in the heartland of Scotland, creepy smart city, yes. And nothing creepy about it, by the way, folks. It's, funnily enough, it's still the same as what it was before it was a smart city. Just better internet, Scott. More cameras. It's good.
Yeah, exactly. So I came across this on Mysterious Heartland, and I was like, let's go for it. Just it caught my eye. Top 10 tales of witchcraft in the Midwest. And it says, although belief in witchcraft has persisted in the American Midwest for nearly 2 centuries, Mysterious Heartland has found it surprisingly difficult to locate stories of witchcraft in the region. Nevertheless, we have scoured newspaper archives and dusty volumes to bring you some of the most exciting and obscure accounts of conjuring, hexes, and mistaken identity. Which story will prove to be the most compelling of them all? So, starting with number 10.
Excuse me, it's ma'am.
I don't know why I played him. I just felt like it.
Yeah, I'm like, okay.
We'll just go with it.
Yep, go with it. Yeah. Number 10, The Weighing of Nancy Evans. Bethel, Ohio is where this occurred. In 1805, on the Ohio frontier, 2 teenage daughters from the Hildebrand family began to display strange behavior. According to History of Clermont County, Ohio, On the approach of night, they would scream and at times become perfectly frantic from fright of the hideous objects which they professed to see, and which maintained such a spell over them that they were unfitted for their duties. Their family came to suspect the girls were under a witch's spell and applied an obscure folk remedy. They conducted a ceremony over a linen and wool bag designed to trap the witch inside. They sealed the bag, chopped it to pieces with an axe, and burned the remnants. The girls continued to be tormented, however, so their suspicion turned to an old woman named Nancy Evans. In order to keep matters from getting out of hand, a local justice of the peace ordered a large wooden scale to be constructed. It was believed that God would not allow a witch to weigh more than the Bible.
Whoa.
So Nancy was So Nancy was put on one end and the Bible on the other. In slight of witness, Nancy tipped the scale in her favor and was exonerated. Talk of witchcraft in Bethel died down after the Hildebrand family moved away.
How bad was all that kind of witch hunt stuff over there, Scott? I mean, you hear about the kind of Salem. Everyone's heard of that one, right? But I mean, was it widespread, you know?
It was very widespread in the U.S. because of, our puritanical roots and a lot of fundamentalist beliefs, that spread throughout. And I mean, there's still a lot of that kind of goes on today. I mean, not like witch hunts as far as like that, but they don't call it the Bible Belt for nothing, here in the US. I mean, there's still a lot of really kind of hardcore fundamentalist people that really, stick that kind of stuff, so it doesn't surprise me at all. And look, going back to the stole thing, a lot of that originated from supposedly a witch being hung on a tree, and I believe the albino lady haunting that is here in Topeka, there's two kind of versions of it, and one version is that there was a woman who was albino, but they thought she was a witch and they burned her alive, so
it's crazy, isn't it? Just like lack of knowledge and the time. That's wild, dude. Wild.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you're going to see a reoccurring theme of this kind of stuff as we go through this article, especially, with the Heartland stuff. So number 9, the Three Sisters, and this is in Shelby County, Indiana. So Shelby County is located in southwest central Indiana. Today it is home to over 44,000 people. In the early 1800s, however, Shelby County was a hunters and trappers paradise with less than 6,000 people living there. Cabins were few and far between, and hunting trails crisscrossed the heavily wooded landscape. According to local legend, 3 beautiful but reclusive sisters lived in a cabin deep in the woods. They were known to be witches who could transform into wild animals. Most of their neighbors knew to stay away from them, but one man who was new to the area went out hunting in that part of the forest. He was a particularly apt hunter and used to brag about how many deer he had killed. That season, he came upon 3 fawns. He took aim and fired. He should have hit at least one of them, but mysteriously the bullet missed. The next day he fired at the fawns again, but missed. Frustrated, the hunter went to town to buy a new musket. An old man at the store told him that there was nothing wrong with the weapon, but that he should melt silver coins and mold them into bullets. The hunter complied, and the next day, when he fired at the fawns, he hit one of them in the foot. He tracked a trail of blood back to the cabin where he saw 3 beautiful women inside. One lay in bed with her foot maimed. When he confronted the women, they admitted that they were witches and had transformed themselves into fawns. After that, they moved away and were never seen again. Whoa.
Now, this is weird. I'm gonna have to find something here, but give me 2 seconds. I just need to find the name of it. There's a TV show on Netflix right now, and it's called Luna Nera. Now, the reason I bring that up, Scott, is because I've been covering a couple of times a story about this group of...
Il momento che aspettavamo sta per arrivare.
Oh, turn off. I thought that was thunder outside. It's actually clip playing on here. But it's a story about... I'm trying to find the name of the group of people. Give me 2 seconds. It's going to be relevant, though. People that have been on the screen probably are screaming it out. It's that group of Italian shape-shifting, astral travelling witch hunters. They were around in the 1700s, Scott. I think they're called the Benandante, or I'll get it up. Mysterious Universe had it, but when you said there they were like witches who were shape-shifting, it sounds very much like this group of... And what was weird was they were like sanctioned by the Vatican to start with, Scott, and then eventually, like the Knights Templar, everyone turned on them, you know. 1 minute they were the good guys, the next minute, yous are witches. And they were burned at the stake. But it's weird because it's like the first time I'd heard about astral travelling witches or witch hunters, and now they're coming up in your story close to you. I'll dig that up for later. That was cool.
Yeah, and you know, here's another interesting thing to think about. So, I mean, we chalk a lot of this up to, okay, these were just people who, you know, were naive or didn't understand anything, and they just accuse these people of being witches. But on the flip side, were there actual witches out there doing stuff? You know,
the Benandante, that's what they're called, man.
Were some of these encounters, like, were we dealing with actual legit witches or people that were, you know, doing stuff as well? You know, I think maybe we're dealing with a mix of the two. You know, maybe some of these encounters or some of these experiences were legit, and some of them were just a case of mistaken identity, or people just kind of freaked out about something that they didn't understand. You know? I don't know. So number 8, we've got the Loon Lake Witches in Middletown, Minnesota. It's deep in the swampy woods north of Spirit Lake and the Minnesota-Iowa border lies Loon Lake Cemetery. Now abandoned, fewer than 18 of the original 67 headstones remain. According to legend, in 1881, the townspeople of the nearby village of Petersburg accused an 18-year-old girl named Mary Jane Terwilliger, sometimes simply known as Mary Jane, of being a witch and beheaded her. She was buried on a hill in Loon Lake Cemetery. Their troubles with witches did not stop there, however, and they saw fit to execute 2 more young women in subsequent years. The graves of these women became something of a local tourist attraction, so their headstones were removed to protect them from vandals. Unfortunately, the exact location of Mary Jane's grave has been forgotten, and legend says that anyone who walks across it will die within 72 hours.
Ooh, that 72 keeps coming up today, dude.
Yeah, that's that number again. According to one account, this was perpetuated by reports of a young man who walked over the grave while hunting in the area. On the way home, a heavy fog ascended. Interesting.
Just saying.
Just saying. And after he pulled his car over, he suffered carbon monoxide poisoning.
Oh, ouch.
Ouch. The cemetery is believed to be haunted by other anguished spirits as well.
I wonder if any... there must be like researchers out there that have caught on to the mist and the fog a long time before we did, right?
They have to. I mean, this
Come on,
is just...
it's everywhere, right? People say, oh, but it's just a scary story. Obviously, no, I don't think it's just an obvious thing that you add in there. I think it's a imperative component to the event. It's actually part of it, you know?
Exactly. Like, yeah, it's an integral part of.
Yeah, it's an essential core ingredient.
It's an essential core ingredient to the phenomenon. That there's got to be some fog or mist.
We're gonna put the science into the woo, Scott. I'm telling you, man. Even if it's just a shared insanity that we form between each other, it'll be fun, right?
Yes. Okay, so now we are heading on to number 7, which is Eva Locker. And this is in Williamson County, Illinois. During the 1830s, on a place called Davis Prairie, also known as David's Prairie, there lived a woman named Eva Locker, who was widely reputed to be a witch.
Oh.
Ava was notorious for her ability to steal milk from cows by hanging a towel over a rack or door and then magically wringing out the milk from the towel.
Well, now hang on a minute. You can't even just it's not the kind of thing a neighbor would make up. Like, even like, imagine she's just been a bit promiscuous with maybe the neighbor and like it's a scorned wife. You're not going to make up to get her accused of being a witch. You're going to say, well, what she done was she got this towel, right? And whoa, and she got the milk into it, and then she wrung it out. You would say something a lot more simple than that. Point being, that's got to be something that's kind of, what the heck, dude? What led people to say that? Did she literally do that?
Maybe she was just, she busted out a party trick that went horribly wrong and got completely misconstrued by
horribly wrong.
I don't know, man. So apparently she could steal milk from cows by, doing this thing with the towel and then wringing the
cow milking witch.
Said pioneers of the area blamed this old spinster for malades of all kinds. She could do wonders and inflict horrible spells on the young, such as fits, twitches, jerks, and such like. And many an old lady took the rickets at the mere sound of her name. Milo Irwin, author of History of Williamson County, Illinois, wrote, according to historian John W. Allen, Ava had the ability to kill cattle by shooting them with balls of hair, which were found in the stomachs of the afflicted animals.
Balls again.
Whenever Ava Locker struck, the men of Williamson County sent for Charlie Lee, a noted witch master from Hamilton County, who broke Ava's spells by piercing an effigy of her with silver bullets.
Doesn't that sound like somebody you would imagine going toe to toe with Bill being a witch master?
Exactly.
Or do you think that's the name for somebody that would do Bill's work back at that time? Is he the one that comes and kind of calms them down, cancels the magic out? Is that what happens there?
Oh, very interesting.
Because he broke Eva's spells, so he's against the witches, isn't he?
Yeah. Now I will say though, one of these things in here, I know for a fact is something that is a case of just something that they didn't understand and probably blamed on her. The balls of hair found in a cow's stomach. That's an actual thing where over time, like when cows lick themselves and stuff, it's literally kind of like a hairball that a cat develops, but they swallow it and it just stays in their stomach. And probably when the cow died or something like that, they found this hairball in his stomach and they were like, whoa, it just freaked them out, and they probably blamed it on her. But very interesting.
Poor woman, man.
Yeah, but who knows? I mean, that doesn't explain the whole towel.
No, it doesn't explain that. Maybe not such a poor woman. See, I'm letting my guard down. Telling you, man, my toxicity is going to be the death of me, Scott.
Okay, so number 6 is the Witch's Castle, Utica, Indiana. Also known as Mistletoe Falls, legend and real-life horror cross paths at the ruins of this abandoned stone house in the woods of off Upper River Road. According to legend, a coven of witches lived here in the founding years of Utica. It's unknown how many witches resided within, but numbers range from 3 to as many as 9. Terrified, the townspeople trapped the witches inside and burned them to death. Today, all that remains are the stone walls, cellars, and staircases overgrown with underbrush. Visitors have reportedly heard and seen the ghost of a raven-haired adolescent girl wearing a white dress. Witch's Castle has become a hangout for local teens, and it is rumored that black rituals still take place there. In January of 1992, these ruins were one of the places where 4 teenage girls tortured 12-year-old Ashanda Scherer before ultimately stabbing and burning her to death. Whoa,
that's got a dark history, man.
Juju going on at that place, man.
Big time. Oh, that's yeah, there's something not right there. And if nothing else, that's going to have left an imprint there, right? That's bad juju.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, now you have a bunch of people going there with some really, really dark intent and doing some really dark stuff at that location. So regardless of the actual origins of the place and if the original story was true or not, now you got a bunch of people going there, and I'm sure if that place didn't have some dark energy before, now it does. So yeah. All right, number 5, Black Annie.
Oh, you better watch Anne doesn't hear you calling her that. Can you call it that? Are you allowed to call it that? We didn't know. It's a story algorithm. Get over it. It's a word.
We've already crossed the Rubicon on that one, man.
We have, man. We're gone.
So this is in Mount Vernon, Illinois. It says between the late 1860s and early 1930s, Mount Vernon was plagued by the appearance of a female spirit known variously as Black Annie, the Lady of Sorrow, or Cyclone Annie, or Annie, yeah. According to Michael Norman, sightings of Annie began when the citizens of Mount Vernon ran off a witch who was threatening their cattle. And here we go, another witch who's really taking it out on the cows, man.
Yeah, the cattle connection, very interesting.
Mm-hmm. They thought they were rid of her until February 9th, 1888, when a tornado touched down in Mount Vernon and destroyed a half-mile wide swath of homes and businesses, killing 37 and injuring as many as 800 people. Wow. Yeah, it sounds like sounds like an F4 or F5 tornado to me. After the disaster, several eyewitnesses reported seeing a woman dressed in black, wailing and screaming, wandering around the debris. In 1918, residents of Mount Vernon were terrified by the appearance of a woman dressed in black who chased pedestrians. Finally, Black Annie was blamed for a series of strange attacks in 1936 involving sleeping powder thrown through open windows.
What the heck?
Whoa, she has not been seen since, but parents sometimes use the Black Annie to scare their children into behaving properly. Wow.
Well, I don't know if Jake Merlin in the chat, I don't know if he lives near Chicago, but he's saying which is a suburb of Chicago. Excellent. And yeah, Jake, I don't know what it is about Illinois, Chicago area, but for some reason, dude, do you think, Scott, in a way, and nothing to do with this set of stories here, but when you look at Chicago in the present day, a lot of violence there. Not for me to comment on, but a lot of violence, and we often talk about violence doing things. And could that be leading to more Mothman? more woo going on? Because it's a hotbed, right?
Yeah, I mean, no, I never really even thought of it from that perspective of just the amount
A lot of
of
people don't
bad
come
stuff,
home at the weekends, you know, every weekend.
just the amount of bad stuff going on in that city in general, you know, especially in a lot of those like high crime areas like Southside Chicago, all that stuff, you know. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you have people, I mean, the murder rate is extremely high in that city, and you got to figure a lot of that stuff is just going on in the same areas, you know, repeatedly.
It's
And
a
how
bad
much of
vibe.
that,
It's got to be a bad vibe, right?
yeah, how much of that energy is being stored there? And then not only that, even just say just the energy of the people that have to live in that area, you know. I mean, it can't, you a lot of those people, it's very hard to carry around a positive attitude when you're surrounded by that, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are scared. There's a fear vibe that's being emitted, and it just, yeah, it makes you wonder, is that contributing to a lot of this stuff in and around the Chicago area
Plus,
as well?
Obama smells of sulfur. So we know that there's like it's literally the gate to hell. Come on, man. Jonesy assured me that he had like insiders that told him that Obama smells of sulfur. It's not fake news.
Yeah, like Jake from Farron in the chat said, you know, Chicago is a dark city, and it is.
Fermi
A lot.
Labs is in Chicago as well. Wow.
Mm,
Wonder if they've got a little particle accelerator going on there, eh? You never know.
yeah. All right.
Oh, this
Well,
is good. This has been a good night. Let's get back to the woo.
yes. So, number 4, Bloody Mary, Sandusky, Ohio, says, according to local legend, an old woman named Mary lived near Lake Erie in the 1800s. She fell in love with a much younger man from Huron who did not return the feeling. His eyes were fixated on the pretty ladies in their community. Mary became furious and vowed revenge.
Never good.
Never
been there.
good.
I've been there. Doesn't end well.
Upon drawing the shape of a woman in the sand, she snuck into the bedrooms of attractive young women at night, kidnapped them, and killed them at her cabin in the woods. She then selected their best body parts and assembled the pieces into a perfect woman. Whoa, this sounds like some horror film.
It's like a kind of really weaponized, like woke feminazi stuff going on here, man.
This is crazy.
And they do have a particle collider in Chicago, just saying.
Of course they do. When it was complete, she placed this grotesque doll on a pier on Lake Erie where she knew the young man would pass by and see it. When he went up to go talk to this strangely alluring creature, Mary sprang the trap and dragged him into the water to his death. Mothers warn their daughters to stay away from the shores of Lake Erie, lest they be kidnapped by the spirit of this old hag who still wanders in search of body parts to this day.
That's dark, dude.
Yeah,
That's pretty yeah, like sinister stuff going on there, man. That's like some voodoo doll made out of like proper parts.
Yeah, that's some wild stuff.
Yeah,
man.
that's definitely like a novel or some creepy thriller kind of. That should be made into a movie or something, man.
Totally, like I said, that's some total like horror film story plot right there.
Yeah.
All right, number 3, the Callan Road Witch. And this is
Scott, I'm gonna let you read this. I'm just gonna be 1 minute. I'll be back. Okay.
Okie dokie. And this is in Rapone, Wisconsin. And it says, as motorists drive down Callan Road at night, the gnarled branches of barren trees cast frightening shadows in their car headlights. Some of these trees begin to take the form of a twisted old crone. The spirit of a witch, they say, inhabits these woods. The remnants of her old house can be found in the woods off to the side of the roads. Crosses and bones lay scattered about. Some brave souls have reported seeing the ghost of an adolescent girl hiding behind the trees, still trying to escape the clutches of the witch. One visitor reportedly heard crying and faint moaning and the sounds of pebbles being thrown against his or her car. Additionally, strange flashing lights have been spotted deep in the woods, and the sound of trickling water echoes down the lonely road at night. Others report that the temperature will suddenly drop, chilling visitors to the bone. It is no wonder this creepy stretch of pavement has been called Witch Road. Very interesting. So we have another kind of the woods and this whole kind of thing going on. I don't know. I mean, there's always that commonality in a lot of these stories that the witch lives in the woods, a cabin in the woods. And I don't know. And, whether these are just made up stories or not, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's just good woo. It's interesting stuff. I'm sure some of these were just stories made up to keep kids from running out into the woods, obviously. You don't want your kid running out into the woods and having a predator animal or something get a hold of them. So it's kind of a way to keep them at from doing that, right? Yeah, I was just telling the chat, because somebody was like, that's made up. Well, yeah, I'm sure some of these are made up, and it really doesn't matter. I mean, it's good woo. And I was saying, I'm sure a lot of these stories were just told to children to keep them from running off into the woods.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's a commonality in a lot of these stories that the witch lives in a cabin in the woods, right? And it's much easier to, I guess, kind of scare your kid and tell them, oh, there's a scary witch in the woods that's going to get a hold of you, than trying to explain, okay, there's predator animals out there, and some this and this and this might happen. It's just sure. I mean, you're kind of lying to your kid in a way, but
it's whatever. One of those ones that you're allowed to psychologically damage your own child with that kind of stuff when they're young. It's okay, they'll get over it. Maybe not in today's world, right enough, Scott. But no, some of these stories, me and Scott, absolutely. We're not daft, We're not totally convinced that everything we read on the internet is true. Far from it. Exactly.
And the thing is that I think the more interesting ones, though, are that kind of have a follow-up of actual, I would say, paranormal activity with it. Then that kind of makes it a little more, I would say, legit in my book, when you have multiple witnesses or people having experiences that are associated with the story as well. Just the story itself doesn't just make me go, oh, well, that happened. But if people are experiencing paranormal activity around the area, then I'm like, maybe there's something to it. All right. Number 2. Mary Worth, and this is in Wadsworth, Illinois. According to legend, Mary Worth was a notorious witch who lived on a farm west of...
It was the animals. Was it the animals that drove them mad, Scott? I blame the animals. Nobody's blaming the animals.
If all of this was happening in the 1800s, then it's all going to be farms.
Witch lives matter. Come on.
Yeah, which lives matter. Yeah, exactly. So she was a notorious witch who lived on a farm west of Gurnee in Lake County, in the mid 1800s, prior to the Civil War, she would capture runaway slaves and torture them in her barn. Ooh, that's not good. Outraged locals took the law into their own hands and burned her to death. Some say her bones were buried in St. Patrick's Cemetery, but others say they were buried on her farm. Years later, a house was built over the foundation of the former barn. The family who lived there found a stone on the property and used it as a step beneath their front door. Poltergeist activity quickly followed. In 1986, the house burnt to the ground, and subsequent efforts to build at the location have failed. Some researchers believe this tale is the origin of the Bloody Mary urban legend.
It could be, eh? I've been on top chat this whole time. Anyone out there, make sure you're on live chat, by the way. What a amateur mistake, Scott. Amateur, but yeah, the Bloody Mary urban legend. I've heard of a couple of stories cited for the whole Bloody Mary thing, and I think that it's pretty much all over the world. The whole Bloody Mary, right? I think it's got pretty much it's a universal kind of woo story, is it not?
Yeah, exactly. Then that makes you wonder, if it's such a universal thing, then what?
Ah, exactly. Where there must be something.
Where did it come from? Yeah.
And everyone in the chat room's laughing at me. I get it. Come on, folks. I mean, we've got our own Discord. I'm like the worst person in Discord, and it's got my name on the door. You have to keep me right. Yes, and Logos is going on about CERN. And before Scott gets to number one, that's come up in the conversation because of Fermi Labs. And yep, Anthony and I often used to talk about how it was the old site of the Temple of Apollo, and literally the opening to the abyss. That's the location, the geography that, just coincidentally, they decided that they would build a machine that would open doorways to other dimensions. It's all a coincidence, but no, I think we've gone over this before, but I can't thank Anthony Patch enough for teaching me all that, or I wouldn't know 1% of what I know about that stuff, Logos. So I'm glad you're still enjoying Anthony's work, and even from time to time I stop in there, I still catch up on what's going on. Fascinating stuff, and when it comes to the science of all that, top notch, absolutely top notch. So then, number one, Scotty.
All right, number one is Molly Crenshaw. This is in St. Charles, Missouri. So it is next door to Kansas.
Is this right near you then?
St. Charles, Missouri. I'll have to look. I'm not sure if it's in eastern or western Missouri or central Missouri, but either way, next door. Since the 1960s and 70s, a legend has circulated in high schools in the St. Charles area about a witch named Molly Crenshaw. Molly, it is said, was a free Jamaican or Haitian practitioner of voodoo who lived in the 1800s. Her charms were occasionally sought after, but after one particularly nasty drought or long winter, the locals turned against her and executed her. In order to prevent her from rising from the grave, they chopped her body into pieces and buried the pieces in the woods around a remote cemetery. It wasn't enough. Year after year, the pieces crawl closer together. Anyone who successfully locates Molly's grave will meet a gruesome end. According to a local English teacher at Francis Howell High School, there was a story about two football players who went looking for the grave in the 1950s. They found it and tried to take the tombstone. They met with an untimely end. The sheriff's deputy found their bodies impaled on the graveyard fence.
Whoa.
As far as local historians are concerned, there is no basis for the legend. Molly Crenshaw did exist, but she was neither Jamaican nor Haitian, and she died in 1913 after swallowing, was it carbolic acid?
That'll do it.
Interesting.
Yeah, that'll about do it.
That has not prevented Molly Crenshaw from becoming one of the most popular and enduring legends in St. Charles County. Crenshaw's surviving relatives removed her gravestone in 1979 to prevent further damage, but every year, hundreds of thrill seekers still search for it.
Yeah,
interesting.
I would go looking for the English teacher if I was going to question anyone about all of that. Definitely inserting himself into the narrative there as my armchair detective that we all are nowadays. That's a wrong one. He needs looking at that one. Yep.
Yeah, so
we'll get
there we
the
go.
Facebook forensic experts onto it, Scott. They'll be able to rip it apart. They'll tell us what's happening, man.
I think probably the most interesting ones out of here would probably be, I think, the shape-shifting witches was probably the most interesting one. And
there's the ones I was talking about there, Scott. Now, I've gone over that, but I'll drop you the story. But that's really interesting. It's along the same lines, you know. Really kind of cool. Astral traveling witches or witch hunters. Fine line.
Now, I will say though, I mean, there were a lot of people though who dabbled into the occult and witchcraft and all of that. I mean, and it still happens today, you know, here in the Midwest. And a lot of that has to do, once again, with kind of like the strict kind of puritanical fundamentalist roots. And then you have people that end up rebelling against that and then taking it to the extreme in the other direction, you know? And so there is a lot of that goes on. I mean, there's a lot of people that engage and like go out in the woods and do like occult rituals and stuff like that.
That's usually because I went looking for cattle mutilations for yesterday, as you know, and the majority of the stories that I came across, unfortunately, had a very down to earth kind of explanation, and 9 times out of 10 it was to do with youngsters maybe dabbling in a bit of black magic, Satanism, and it makes you wonder just how widespread it is today in comparison to the past. When I was growing up, I was in a small school, didn't really see any of it. There was maybe one guy that I can remember a couple of years ahead of me, dressed in black and a bit depressing, and used to listen to Morrissey, and you'd think to yourself, if anyone's out there doing nasty things to chickens and little animals, it'll be that one. But no proof for it. But then when you go up to Boleskine House, you see that they're writing the symbols of Thelema. And of course, with nowadays, why people want to initial it and date it is beyond me. But these are recent, so there is dabbling going on, you know?
See, and that's the thing. Like, I think it's a lot more prevalent here than maybe it is over there. I don't know.
It's hard to tell because it's so kind of, I don't know, nobody really talks about it, right?
Well, I mean, just kind of speaking for myself, I mean, there was quite a few people I knew in high school that dabbled into that kind of stuff, you know, and it wasn't just like that one guy.
So
you know,
were they typically from a religious background, family type thing, and gone the other way?
Generally, that's kind of like, so that's why I was saying, you know, when you live in an area where there's like a lot of fundamentalist Christian beliefs, then you generally have, you know, when teenagers go through their rebellious stage, what's the first thing they do? Well, they're going to rebel against their parents, and generally that entails their religion and all of that stuff. So then they go in the complete opposite way, right? And they start dabbling into things and initially it's just let's be honest, it's just to, you know, piss off their parents, and
as you do.
You know what I mean? As you know. but then they're dabbling into things that they don't understand, you know, and then they get deeper and deeper into it, you know, and so I mean, yeah, you have a lot of that going on here. I mean, like Stoll Cemetery, you have a lot of people, you know, Satan worshipers and stuff going out there and going out into the
Crikey,
wooded area.
Scott,
out there.
as historical statues are coming down in your country and mine, the only statues I can remember getting erected in recent times are the Baphomet. Remember the big Baphomet statues that you pop up? You know? That's weird.
Very interesting, huh?
Isn't it? Yeah. Oh,
Very
now we're getting a
interesting, huh?
glimpse at what the new world will look like and what they'll tell us history was. It was a big goat man. A big goat man running about looking after children. Oh, it must have been a great time back then. Oh, yeah, that was really great. Where did the goat man go? Hail, Satan. Uh-huh. You can, yeah. Don't worry, you'll be closer to the goat man. Dang, dude.
So yeah, I mean, either way, like I said, I mean, we do have this thing of people going out into the woods with some strange intent and doing things out there.
You go down to the woods today.
We may be talking about some of these kind of witchcraft tales from the 1800s, but what I wonder is what are the people that are going out there to right now, you know, and today, what are they doing out in the woods?
Does make you wonder. Next time you go down to the woods, Jason, you're the only man I know that lurks about in the woods. He got bitten alive, dude, when he went to that Wistman Woods.
Remember they had the coven of witches that were going to put a hex on Trump.
Yeah.
And all of that stuff.
Yep.
I mean, they're still out there. They're still out there doing
Nancy
their thing.
Pelosi, when she can get off her knee, is still... She's kind of using the autopilot now, but she's at least the owner of Broomstick One. You know, I tell you, you don't have to look far into the American politics to see the links to the coven.
Do you guys have like a life alert in the UK?
No.
You know, where you hit it's for the old people. They hit the button. They're like, "Help! I've fallen and I can't get up."
Oh no, dude! If you're old, no, man. They try and take every measure they can to make sure you can't get help like that. Come on, dude.
Well, we got that commercial here, you know, and it's become it's become a meme, you know, it's become like a parody of itself, you know, and then he on the commercial shows the old people laying down and they're like, "Help, I've fallen and I can't get up," and they're like advertising Lifeline, you know. So I was saying, you know, on the new Lifeline Life Alert commercial, that's what it's called, Life Alert. The new Life Alert commercial, they need to feature Nancy Pelosi, and she needs to be like, "Help! I'm pandering and I can't get up."
I've seen you putting that, man. Big time.
Yeah.
Big time, dude. That's crazy. It's like gone beyond idiocracy. Idiocracy now looks like it was a serious take on what the future might look like. But we are almost out of time. I'm looking in the chat room. I see War, Logos, Robin. We have got John, Brent posting all the sheep and awesome stuff. BW, he's in there. Let's see how we are living. Done that show with Bill Bean several times already. See how we are living. Yep. Bill chooses the material now. He's in charge of warrior mode. I enjoy just being the co-host. It's I get to put my feet up a bit more that night. And that'll be tomorrow night at midnight. Gosh, it comes around really quickly. I can't believe how quickly the week's going. Brent's in there. Right? Yeah, we've got Lisa. So good to see you again, Lisa. And I know you're lurking. Don't come to the keyboard. It's just really nice to know we still have you around here. It really is. Lisa was somebody I met when we done the whole Unirock, the 17th letter thing, Scott. And yeah, we still, you know, absolutely awesome. So it's good to see her here. I know she works night shift now, so that sucks. Yeah, I've done the whole night shift thing. Sam's in there. ZX, big shout out to you, brother. Ken, Rotman. Who else? Big shout out to my brother. And Kenny, listen, dude, I know you were laughing about the jeans, but in all seriousness, come on, man. Have a word with yourself. They're far too tight. When you start to see things like that and you're bursting out of them like the Hulk, the only reason I actually went out with you that day, and it was touch and go at one point, because I had to check if you had socks on. If you had gone with your mankles hanging out, there's no danger I'd have been going anywhere near Clava Cairns. Mankles are a no-go, Scott. No mankles.
It's okay. I don't have any mankles to show, so.
No mankles? No. That's not a problem for you. No.
Yeah, not a problem for me.
See, you're never going to trigger me that way. It's a perfect relationship we have here, Scott. You see, I won't even have to think about that. Kenny and Griggles, yeah, you have to worry about these kind of things. Very soy, these young men. Send them to Texas, says. Right, Donnie's still there. Now, Donnie, I know Donnie wanted me to take a quick look at something before we go. And I think I know what it is he wants me to take a quick look at, but I could be wrong. Let me just pull up what I think it is. That's not a song, by the way. It's just me making noises. Right, hang on. Let me make this a size we can see it again. I'll bring it up on the screen. We'll come over here. We'll close that down. Bada bing, bada bing. Right, so you got that there. And I think he wants me to go and look at the bit where you see the holes in the stone. I think it's along here somewhere, if I remember rightly.
Many years ago.
Look, even his girlfriend's got holes in her trousers. What's wrong with these people? Buy a pair of trousers that, like, I've got all of them there. What's wrong with people, Scott? You know what I'm saying? Right, there's a bit. We've seen that bit. There's a wee path that must be coming up, I think.
It's a weird looking stone.
It's a weird looking stone. Right.
What was that wee one for then?
That's the campfire, I think, eh?
So it's a bit one, just what's left of it, I think. There's a lot more of everyone, I think. They're all been...
That's my stepdad with a really broad Scottish accent there. Crazy accent, right?
No. Fully done.
Joe Joseph, I bet you'd be thinking these are the Giants building this, wouldn't you? Why am I thinking of Joe Joseph when I'm up? That's not healthy. Josephus.
Yes.
Sight, aye.
Where is that big stone? Right, I think it's coming up now. I think. Whoa.
Pelosi hasn't been on her knees since she bowed before King Og of Bashan. Lol, sorry, couldn't resist an old person joke. Woo.
No need to apologise here, brother. No need.
Something pretty weird.
Thank you, Logos. Right, now, hang on. I think we might be getting close to these wee stones, maybe.
Good for a...
Wee
Right.
chimney.
I don't know.
Awesome.
Hang on.
The laird. This your...
Now, if you come back here,
Wee chimney.
I don't know.
there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's more down below. And I know where you're going with it. Way, thank you, Brian.
Great lurk. Leprechaun salute. Much love chat.
Much love to
PPP.
you. Much love to you, brother. And I think I know where you're going with this, Donnie. I think Donnie is talking about... Now Donnie's saying that's women's business. I'm totally lost. Need to scroll back up here. What's Rotman saying? I'm just here, had a curry meat pie. I'm still here, right? Nothing like a pie for. Can't wait to see you guys. Right. My brekkies always are. No, I definitely didn't miss much. That's a lunar calendar. Very interesting. Now, hang on then.
Mm.
I think there might be a better view of this if I just play it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I was going to say if there were 7, it might have been the Pleiades, and I think that might have been where Donnie was going as well, because that comes in heavily to the Aboriginal story, Scott. The 7
I think
sisters.
you also have a picture of that rock.
Yeah.
Well,
did we
something like that.
did we go to the? Was that on the website? Do you think when we went to look at the pictures?
Maybe.
I think
Yeah,
it was.
I think
Well, I'll just pull it up and then we'll get going after this. But I'll pull it up here. Picked carvings. There we go. Images.
I think it was the Clava Cairns pictures.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Might even have been on that website then, eh?
Mm-hmm.
There we are.
Yeah,
Look at that thing. Cup marks on a rock. Cup? Really? What is Donnie still going on about women business? Kev Baker show women business. So this is like a women's business, this stuff. Alright then. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, this is the stuff that they understand or that they're able to decide.
Yeah. Oh, dude,
Yeah.
my toxicity had to get packed in the drawer when I done that show. It's a whole matriarchal system thing going on. It's really cool, by the way. Oh, Anne's sitting in the background. I'm the boss. You should have heard what Scott was saying about you earlier, Anne. It was terrible. It was bang at the order, Annie.
Kev trying to throw me on it, trying to divert attention.
He had a story about Black Annie. It was a horror story. I'm getting the shoe. Yay. Anne says, obviously, Scott knows me well.
Okay.
But, dude, I've had a blast tonight, man. Have you? It's been a long one. It's 3:22 in the UK. 3:22. 3:22. Oh, yeah, 3:22. What better time to wrap up, ladies and gentlemen. A tip of the hat to Geronimo and all the boys in the casket over there at Yale. Taking one for the team. You know, Scotty, bit of 3:22 going on there. Bit of skull and bones, bit of woo. And we'll be back. I'll definitely be back with Bill tomorrow. But I might actually come on and do a live dive of the ancient woo in the early evening. Because I'm really enjoying opening up these kind of historic rabbit holes. And I hope you enjoyed the footage. We'll watch that to take us out today. I think because I think the music that goes along with it as well, it'll probably rile me up and get me ready for fighting again. I'm only joking, but a great way to take us out, right? But Scotty, have you had fun, my man?
Oh, I had a blast, dude. I had a blast. It was really cool getting into the Scottish woo and then diving into the Midwest woo. And
yeah, we have to really make the most of the woo that we have around us, and yeah, to all my fellow Scotsmen out there, just enjoy this and don't let yourself get angry about that famous defeat. Don't shed a tear at the fact we got halfway to London and we turned back. Learn from that experience. We can do it again. And this time we'll get further than Derby, and we'll get right down there to Westminster, and we'll get oldie lizard breath. And you know what's coming next? Keep your mind open. Keep looking for the woo, but not to the point where your brain turns to black goo.
Where Many men have gone. Lay me down in the cold cauldron, wherefore many men have gone. When they come, I will stand my ground.
Now, as you watch these pictures, I'll need to check, but they're talking about building houses on Culloden. That breaks my heart.
Thoughts ahead, take away my fear. Sweat and blood, eens a year, say a prayer for me. Close your eyes and remember me. Ne'er more shall I see the sun, for I fell to a German's gun. Lay me down in the cold cauldron, wherefore many men have gone. Lay me down in the cold cauldron, wherefore many men have gone. Wherefore many men have gone.
Keep it real.